Okay, so there's multiple ways you can set these slots up. I like to use the biscuit joiner, but you can also use a table saw or a slot cutter on a router. And I have videos where I show both roughly examples, but I like to use the biscuit joiner. It's definitely the fastest, I think the safest way to put these slots in for your tabletop fasteners. And I'll show you how I attach them. Okay, so once I get my slots cut, I take the table into a clean surface top. I usually put it like a clean blanket down so your showpiece is facing uh, your blanket here. So you want to be careful you don't put on a dirty top or something that's going to get glue or nicks on it. What I do, I grab my little speed rollers here, and I just space out the sides and the front with the top. Now this wood is old reclaimed teak from an old barn in Georgia that a client asked me if I could utilize for some tables for them since they're moving back down there. So it has some sentimental value to them. These tables. I also made some coasters for them also. So I used this little speed roller here, and I'm just getting my spacing correct before I grab my Z clips. And this, you can also do this ahead of time and just make sure your cuts are perfect. But I like to do this as a double check. I roughly knew I was going to need about almost 2 inches all around. I want to have a little bigger top for this. So once I get that done, I'm going to be using Z clips. Now Z clips you can get from Rockler, Woodcraft, or get them from Amazon. I think I got these from off Amazon. They're a little cheaper. Um, Now these slots, these are important here because these slots you could do with a table saw, um, a slot cutting router bit with a little router, or the biscuit joiner. I think the biscuit joiner is probably the safest and quickest way to do it. The table saw is pretty easy, but it can be a little dangerous. So if you look here, I'm going to put the Z clips on the sides. And if you look, the wood will move, but it will move not with the grain, against the grain. So in other words, where there's two pieces of wood, or maybe actually there's three. I'm sorry, yeah, there's two pieces of wood glued together for this, and what the wood will try to do during seasonal movement is try to break apart that glue joint. So with these Z clips doing these slots, it will move with it. So I'm using a self-centered drill bit here, and I'm not going to go too deep with this drill bit, just a little, tap here. And I'm going to use these 3/4 inch, and even though there's just self tapping screws, I still use the drill bit, especially for harder woods. Pine you can get away with just screwing these in directly. So it's important here not to have your frame move. So that's why I'm going to double check here and make sure nothing moves. And I'll put another screw in a diagonal across on the other side. So that way I know I ensure that I have this tabletop somewhat fastened down, so I can, if I have to move it a little bit, I can, but it's kind of secure here. And like I said, I don't over tighten these because you want this wood to be able to breathe a little bit. So in other words, to move. As you see, my magnetic drill bits or impact bits aren't really holding the screws. So much for that. Either way, so I'm just screwing these in. I'm just double checking everything, make sure everything stays nice and straight and square, and another screw fell. So I'm just kind of narrating here. So it's pretty self-explanatory. So what the wood's going to do is going to try to move across. In other words, not with the grain. It's going to move side to side rather than with the long grain. So it's going to try to split as you go, especially if you have a lot of humidity where you live, and depending on drastic weather changes. So this is done. It's screwed in. And it looks good. So everything looks good. And I have a couple more tables that do this too. But this is how I mount tabletops. Okay, so I'm going to repeat the steps for the second table here. So there's 3 tables altogether, but I'm just going to show you the 2. Using a self-centered bit again. And I'm going to use the same 3/4 inch self-tapping wood screws. If you notice also, I'm only putting the Z-clips on the side aprons, not the front and back. And I'm doing that because, and then you can, and I do cut slots for all 4 sides, but I only put them on the sides typically unless I have to put them on the front. Sometimes if there's a bigger table or if there's a little bit of a bow in the table, I'll sometimes put them on the fronts and back also, just to help cinch it down, and without over tightening it though. just to hold it down. And hopefully, over time it will release that if there's like a cup or bow in the wood from the glue up. But typically, I don't put the Z clips on the front and back, as you can see here. So it's the same steps. And next we will start the bottom. I'll show you how I mount the bottoms, and I'm not going to go too detailed with that. If you look, you see these little cleats. Okay, so here I'm just countersinking some holes, pre-drilling on these little cleats that I installed earlier. So then I flip the table back over and I put the bottom shelf pieces in, and I will clamp them down just to kind of hold them in place, and then we'll flip the table back over. And then we will screw in, and I'm just using 1 1/4 inch wood screws. I usually use trim head screws for this, um, but these cleats are a little thicker than I normally use. And these cleats I just put in with using brad nails, 18 gauge brad nails ahead of time. I just use a spacer that's going to be the thickness of the shelves. So it's pretty much done, and they're mounted, and tops and bottoms are in, and I just put a little epoxy on these guys, and they're ready to be shipped out to the client. Thanks. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll try to answer as best as possible. Have a good day, and thanks for watching.